All right, we're looking at a sample of 100 clients of an exercise facility was selected. Let X equal the number of days per week that a randomly selected client uses the exercise facility. So here we have our frequency table, and X is, here's our random variable, and then we have the frequency. And we're asked to find the number that is 1.5 standard deviations or 1.5 standard deviations below the mean. Round your answers to 3 decimal places right there. Oh, my calculator went away. All right, I'm going to show you how to use your graphing utility. This is the TI-83. TI-84 be very similar. There are handwritten calculations you can do. However, we're going to use the TI to save a little time. So you will go to the Stat button and enter. And we're going to go to the Edit, which you see it's highlighted. I'm going to hit Enter. And I have 2 lists, List 1, List 2. I'm going to put these X values in List 1 and the frequencies of them in List 2. If you happen to have something in your list already, for example, let me just put a couple things in there. To clear it, you go up, highlight the L1 or whatever list you want to clear, hit Clear, and then just scroll back down and you can see the list is clear. So we're going to put all of these, and it looks like we're going from 1 to 6, 3, 4, 5, 6. Enter, and you can see I have my list 1 in. Then I'm going to scroll over to list 2, and now I'm going to put how often did 0 occur, and that was 3 times. And how often did 1 occur? 13, and we're just going to go each one of these in there, 29, and you want to make sure you put your numbers in correctly, otherwise we're going to get a wrong calculation, of course. And 5. So I think I got everything in there, and again we can double check 29, 32, 13, and 3, and 0 through 6. So we have our data in that we're going to use. Again, here's our random variables, and here is our frequency of the random variable. And then I'm going to go back to Stat. This time I'm going to arrow over 1 to Calc. And you notice the first one's highlighted, which is what we're going to use. Enter. Now it automatically does list 1, but we want list 1 and 2. So I'm going to hit second, and then the number 1, and you see right there above you have L1, comma, and then second, and we're going to do L2. So there's for list 1, list 2. If I had them in list 2, list 3, I'd put list 2, list 3 here. So if you're using a more modern TI-84, it would be a little different. Actually, it's a little easier as far as how you put your list in. You would just put list 1. It's going to ask you for your list and your frequency. So here we have our data set. So there's a few things we need. Okay, this wants to know the standard deviation. Okay, so we want to know 1.5 standard deviations below the mean. So that's important. Let me bring our calculator back up here. So, what do we have here? So standard deviations. And so I need to know my mean, because I need to know how far are we below the mean. So our mean is 2.73. Okay, and we want 1.5 standard deviations. So I need to know what is 1 standard deviation, and it is right here. Now this is sample standard deviation, which it told us it was a sample, and that's the population. So I want the one above it. I want the 1.3769, and we're going to round this to 1.38. So let's just round it to 1.38 standard deviations. So what is 1.5 of 1.38? So that's what I need to figure out. I need to know what is 1.5 of, which is multiplication, that standard one standard. I want 1.5 standard deviation. So if 1 standard deviation is 1.38, I want 1.5 of those. So it looks like I get 2.07. So we want to know below the mean. So I would take our mean, which is 2.73, and subtract that 1.5 standard deviations, which is 2.07, and it would be 0.66. I may have, whether you round to 0.66 or depending on the rounding, I may have rounded too early. Sometimes you don't want to round too early. As far as how many, oh, yep, it says 3 decimal places. So I'm going to need to go back. I should have read that earlier, so let's go back to our data. So I'm going to run this test again, and I'll have to go L1, comma L2, and 3 decimal places. So instead of 1.38, I'm going to be 1.377 for our standard deviation, 1.377. I'll make sure I write it down this time. So let me clear that. So I'm going to go 1.5 of that 1.377 and enter, and it looks like I get 2.0655. So I want to know how many standard deviations that is from 2.73 minus that 2.0655, and it looks like if we round it to 3 decimal places, which is what it's asked, we get 0.665 for our answer.